Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Desentering Men series. Today I'm going to talk about how most men are losers. That's why they lie to get sex. A lot of women are like, oh, why do men lie? Well, he's lying because he has to lie. He doesn't actually have any positive qualities about himself. That's why he's lying. His bank account is trash, his dick is trash, his hairline is trash, his personality is trash. So if he were to tell you the truth, hey, I'm average, my body count is 500, and I have herpes, of course you're not going to talk to him. So that's why men lie. He's lying because lying is a barrier to entry. He can't get any play. He doesn't get any attention. His own parents don't even check in on him. Let's not even start when it comes to the mother wounds and the father wounds that a lot of men have. I talk a lot about parental wounds on this channel, kind of healing your inner child. Most men are not doing that. And also, we were talking in the Patreon about how if you were to go out right now, generally speaking, you see more women out and about than men. Why is that? Well, because men don't tend to have as many social skills. He does not have social skills. He doesn't know how to do anything other than lie. What does he do? He lies, he plays video games, he gambles, and he looks at porn. That is the lifestyle that the average man is living because, think about it, society is not set up for men to be happy and emotionally healthy and fulfilled and abundant. No. How many men do you know right now who are mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, financially healthy, sexually disciplined, enlightened, and self-actualized? I'll wait. So that's why he's lying to you. It's because he knows that the real him is unattractive. The real him is unattractive. His real personality is unattractive. His lack of ambition is unattractive. That's why he's lying about his income. We've already talked about the stats on this channel. Let me check some updated stats on men's income. Only about 17% of men make above $100,000 per year. Oh, and by the way, if you live in a major city, Chicago, you're in Miami, you are in Las Vegas, you're in Los Angeles, if you live in any major city in America, you know that 100K, first of all, that's not rich, okay? I see a lot of women on TikTok, especially when they make their weight loss videos, they'll be like, oh, I attract rich men now. Okay, ma'am, what is your definition of rich? Because 100K, don't get me wrong, that's good, especially if you don't have kids, you're just one person, that's a good income. But calling 100K rich, that tells me that you're poor, okay? You probably make 30K or you're making minimum wage. So a man making 100K, that is not enough money for me to call him rich. And that's also how I know that the bar is in hell, because you got women online bragging about how supposedly their man is so rich, and then when you find out his job, this man is a plumber. And there are some plumbers that make 100K, and it's like, okay, fine, he's a plumber, but that's not rich, ma'am. So let's look up the stats about men who make more than 500K per year, which, by the way, is still not rich according to the US government. Okay, so I just pulled up a couple of stats, and about 0.79% of all jobs pay more than 500K per year. Okay, so for men specifically, the top 1% makes above 500K per year. So whatever man you're talking to right now, he could be the best man you've ever come across, whatever man you met at the country club, whatever man you met in Turks and Caicos, you met him in Italy. Okay, there's a 99% chance that that man is not rich. So I hear women saying, well, why do men lie? Well, they lie because they're not in the top 1%. That's why. Whatever man you come across, he is in the bottom 80. He's in the bottom 80. He's in the bottom 50%. He's in the bottom 70%. Don't make me start doing stats based on race, ethnicity, immigration status. Don't make me start putting stats like that on my channel. Because then then the men are really going to get mad once I start talking about that. But that's a part of why I talk so much about just going ahead and just decentering men, because the chances are, whatever man you come across, he is most likely nowhere near what you imagined anyway. And I hear a lot of men telling women, oh, well, you should choose better. Oh, well, your standards are unrealistic. Okay, fine. If my standards are unrealistic, that's no problem at all. How about I take all that time and energy and invest it into myself instead? So instead of investing all this time trying to drive to all these different places, paying for all these expensive memberships at all these high-end gyms and country clubs and, trying to do all this stuff, wearing my hair a certain way, spending hundreds of dollars at Zara so I can get a nice dress because hopefully Scott will notice me. Ma'am, Scott is a part of the 99%. He makes less than $500K a year. There's an 80% chance that he makes less than $100K per year. So imagine me going to Zara, spending $500 on an outfit, and then, I attracted this man, he's wearing a nice suit, and then it turns out this guy makes $30K a year. So you know how we spend money trying to look luxurious? Men do the same thing. They may not spend as much money on their outfits, but they spend money on their cars. They spend a lot of money on living in a certain neighborhood. Do you know how many men are struggling right now to keep up with this lifestyle? They're living in debt. Don't even get me started on the debt statistics for states like California. They're living in hella debt just so they can drive around in their little Range Rover, their little Cadillac. And another thing too, that you can rent a car, right? They have where you can get rental Ferraris, you can get a rental Lamborghini. If you want to take fancy photos for your Instagram, I see a lot of men doing this, where they go to a set where it makes it look like they're on a private jet. That's literally a set. That's like a photography set. So he'll go and take pictures in front of somebody else's car. I've also seen men doing that. I've literally been at the grocery store before, walking into the nice grocery store in a nice neighborhood, and I'll see men taking pictures next to somebody else's car, trying to pretend like it's their car. So why do men lie? Because they don't actually have anything to offer. That's why men lie, because they know I ain't shit. So I gotta lie. I gotta get in where I fit in. I can't afford the nice car, so let me walk in the parking lot and take a selfie next to somebody else's car. And by the way, this is a part of why I say that men want women way more than women want men, because the men are the ones going out of their way to tell all these lies. They're the ones going out of their way to try to collect as many women as possible. It's because we as women, we are the status symbols, not the men. You can have high status as a woman and be single. You can still have status as a woman and be a virgin, having never slept with a man in your life. But if you're a man in the same position, you'll actually get made fun of by other men. A lot of other men will call him an incel. A lot of other men will say nobody wanted him. That's why he's never had a girlfriend before. Men are the ones who are chasing after the women, whether they admit it or not. Why is he pursuing that wealth in the first place? It's so he can get access to you as a woman. That's proof that you are the prize. The fact that men are viewing you as a reward for their hard work and building themselves up and getting all that money, that's proof that you are the prize. The fact that he has to lie, he has to take on a whole new personality. Another thing I've seen is, I've seen men who are poor or they come from like the hood or whatever, they try to pretend like they come from a nice background. They try to pretend like they're classy and elegant. They're spending all their time subscribing to channels like Alpha Male Strategies so they can figure out how to come off as classy as possible so they can attract as many women as possible. Okay, so that's proof that you are the prize then as a woman. If you are a beautiful woman, you are the prize. And a part of how we know this is the fact that a lot of female celebrities and influencers have a way stronger fan base than men. How many men do you know who are like, oh, I want to be an Instagram influencer. Oh, I want to be some sort of influencer where I do my hair. How many male content creators do you see doing that? Not very many. And a lot of the famous male content creators, they have to bring women on their show. Like, what's the guy who screams on the microphone? Myron. These types of creators, they have to bring women on the show because it makes it more interesting. It's boring. Nobody wants to listen to just him yapping. They don't want to just listen to him yapping. Other men don't want to listen to other men. They would rather listen to a man who has access to women. That's literally their main marker of social status. So that's why I say that men want women way more than women want men. Always remember that. Whether you decenter men or not, men are still going to be chasing after you regardless. They are. They're so desperate that they will literally follow you outside of a gas station. Imagine being homeless. You are literally homeless. And instead of pursuing how to have food and shelter, you would rather follow women down the street. That's how desperate men are for a woman's energy. You would rather follow a woman down the street. You'd rather catcall a woman. You'd rather chase her. You would rather SA that woman and risk going to prison just so you can get a touch, just so you can get a sniff of that woman instead of finding a place to live. I mean, if that's not a marker of women's inherent social status, I don't know what is. But another reason that men lie is because they're not interesting. They don't have any hobbies, really. Because remember, having hobbies, that's a sign that you actually have money. Most men are too broke to actually have hobbies. That's why they just play video games. Because all you have to do is, you just pay $50 or you just pay a small monthly subscription and boom, you got access to hundreds of video games. Or you can watch anime for free. So that's another reason they lie, because they don't have any interesting hobbies about themselves, because majority of the time they can't afford it. They can't afford to buy golf clubs. Golf clubs are about $150 for the bag of all the different clubs. And then you have to get the clubs that match your height. You have to go to the gym. You kind of have to do some arm workouts. You may have to get training on how to play golf. Okay, so that's already another few $100s. So that's a good $500 just for that one hobby. Let's talk about running. The men who are into running marathons, half marathons, they do triathlons. You have to pay money to purchase your bike. The average bike, especially if it's a speed bike, that's going to be around $400 or so. And then you have to take the time out of your day to actually train for that triathlon or that half marathon. Okay, so he doesn't have as much time to work then, which means that he would have to already have a good salary to supplement him, because the average man, like I said, they're making less than 100K. So the average man doesn't have time for hobbies because he's working a double shift over at Burger King. He's working a double shift over at the factory. He's working a double shift over at the construction site right now. His back is already on the verge of breaking right now because he's over here laying bricks and using a jackhammer every day and, holding up signs and flags. So the average man, he doesn't have the time or the money for hobbies. So that's why he has to lie. Hobbies cost money. Signing up for triathlons, that costs money. Signing up for these little 5Ks and marathons, that's what, $50 to $70, $100, and then they're going to charge you for parking when you get there. Have you ever met a man who gets pissed off about parking? That's how I know he's broke. If you're over here getting mad over $20, sir, you have way bigger problems than being single. Being single should be the least of your worries if you're that stressed out over a $20 parking fee. But that's another reason they lie. They don't have hobbies. Oh, why play basketball? Play basketball where? At the gym? You have to pay for gym memberships. So you have to pay, $50 a month or whatever. And by the way, that is a slightly cheaper hobby, but that's still a hobby nonetheless. You have to buy like the basketball shoes and stuff. So that's about $150, $200 or so. So always listen to, if a guy's trying to talk to you, ask him what his hobbies are. His hobbies will actually tell you his socioeconomic status and how often he does those hobbies. One of the main ways you can tell that he's either broke or he's a liar is if you ask him about his hobbies and he hasn't done that hobby in 5 years. For example, the men who say that they are singers, they're artists, they're producers, they're rappers. Okay, when's the last time you've been in the studio? Because booking studio time costs money. He can't afford the studio time. It costs what, $200, $300 or so? First of all, that's not a lot. When it comes to investing in your dreams. I mean, that's ridiculous to me. How are you going to tell me that something is your dream and you haven't even invested money into that? That's ridiculous. But that's a part of how you know that they don't have shit. And that's why they're lying. That's why they have to lie. It's because his actions don't line up with who he says he is, and he doesn't want you to know that. So you'll hear men say, oh, well, I'm into doing poetry. Okay, when was your last performance? When did you sign up? Because a lot of times you do have to pay to be a part of like those little poetry, the poetry groups, the writers coalitions and all that. They do charge a membership fee in a lot of cases, but a lot of men don't even believe in themselves because they have mother wounds, they have father wounds. Most men have not grown up in an encouraging environment because society trains men to view other men as competition. If you look at the history of the world, men on average tend to view other men as their enemy. And so why would it be any different with a father and son? Why would it be any different with two brothers? Have you ever met a man who has brothers and he's constantly comparing himself to his brother? Him and his brother don't even support each other. They don't even have a real brotherhood. His biggest op is his own brother. He'll tell stories of how him and his brother used to punch each other in the face, or they used to hit each other. They would slap each other. Okay, that's abuse. That is an abusive, dysfunctional background. The average man comes from a dysfunctional background. I don't care what race he is. I don't care what race he is, because I've never heard of a culture that's perfect. I've never heard of an ethnicity that has perfect households. So a lot of those men that you come across and they are negging you as a woman, maybe they're trying to put you down. Maybe those men are competing with you. Yeah, of course he's competing with you, because that's his nature. He has a competitive spirit because he doesn't feel like he's enough. He's never been told that he's enough. He's never felt like he was enough because society has taught him that he's not enough. Men have insecurities just like women. You know how as women, a lot of times when it comes to our beauty, capitalism teaches us that you always have to buy another product in order to be beautiful. Well, in the case of men, oftentimes it's you have to earn more money in order to be worthy. You have to have bigger muscles. You got to be taller. You got to have a better hairline. You can't go bald. You got to have a nicer beard. You got to get this beard oil. So men go through the same, they go through insecurities just like how women do. But the only problem is that in male culture, they don't prioritize emotional healing. They don't prioritize brotherhood. I've seen so many women's support groups, but I don't see the same energy with men. A lot of men are very bad at building emotional safety amongst themselves. And so they can't heal in their own private settings. They can't heal in their own masculine settings with other men. They have to come to women to be their healers. Have you ever noticed that? Why is there always a man seeking a woman's presence so she can heal him? And I'm talking about the men where they're not even seeking a relationship. They just want to be friends with all women. These are the men who are codependent on their sisters. After this man gets divorced, he'll go move in with his sister. He'll go move in with his female cousin. He'll go move in with his mom. He'll go move in with grandma. Why is he never calling another man in order to get back on his feet? Why are men constantly going after women? Well, it's because a lot of women tend to have nurturing spirits. A lot of us are very good at building an emotional safe space. And I'm not saying all women are perfect, but more than men. You know, this is more common amongst women than it is with men. And a lot of men, they try to use that stat against women. They'll be like, oh, well, the majority of therapy patients are women. Yeah, that's because women are actually self-aware and we're holding ourselves accountable. And we're saying to ourselves, hey, I need help. I need therapy. Let me sign up and pay the money so that I can stop being dysfunctional. So that's a good sign. That proves my point, that we are actively seeking healing. So if you're telling me that only 25% of the patients in the therapy office are men, okay, so then that tells me that there are a whole bunch of undiagnosed men running around in society right now, lying and saying they're healed when they're really not. So when people ask this question, why do men lie? Well, it's because they're not about their shit. Their actual lifestyle can't back up who they want to portray. Their inner self-concept does not match who he wants to be in society. Do you know how devastating that is? Do you know how depressing that is? Why do you think the self-unaliving rates for men are much higher? Well, it's because this man doesn't even measure up to his own internalized standard of what manhood is. And when it comes to the whole income thing, with them lying about their income, well, it's because for a lot of men, they have been taught that their income is deeply tied to their identity and their social status. So he doesn't have the social status of being hot. He doesn't have the social status of being tall and muscular or having straight white teeth or even having good hygiene, for God's sakes. So he doesn't have any other form of status to kind of help support him in his social identity. So that's why you see men lying about their income or lying about their job. I've seen that a lot where a man will say that he's an engineer. Okay, what kind of engineer? Is he a state licensed engineer or does he just work in engineering, like the field of engineering? And then a man will say, oh, I'm an accountant. Okay, are you a staff accountant? Are you a CPA? Do you have a master's degree? Or are you just someone who works in accounting? Because all these small little exaggerations, okay, well, that's a form of lying. He's trying to shape his identity in a way that will impress a woman. Because that's a part of his programming. He's not smart enough. He's not enough of a leader. He doesn't have the self-esteem to go against the grain and be authentic. So he just follows what other men have taught him. He follows what other men told him to do. Oh, well, say whatever you got to say so you can get her. Oh, well, you just work, you're the assistant to the engineer. Oh, just say that you're an engineer. She's not going to double check. She's not going to check your background. Actually, yes, I am. And by the way, I highly encourage you, if you are around a man, or if some man is trying to say he's going to provide for you or something, definitely ask him about his background. Definitely ask about his job. Because, by the way, the average rich man, the average man who's successful, if he's trying to portray like he has all this social status, then he should have a digital footprint. Any man who is relevant and successful in our society will have some sort of digital footprint. If he's a CEO, he would have some sort of website for his business. If he's got an amazing job, he will have some sort of LinkedIn account or something. And by the way, men are creating fake LinkedIn profiles just so they can impress women. Okay, so then that's another proof that women are the prize then, because you're sitting up on the internet, spending 25 minutes creating a fake email and a fake login, and you're out here taking pictures, doing a whole photo shoot in a suit so that you can create a fake LinkedIn page so you can attract a woman's attention. I mean, our pedestal is in the sky at this point. I mean, these men are worshiping the female gaze at this point. If you are a beautiful woman, you are worshipped in our society. That is why women are able to make money off of their beauty. Women are able to make money off of their bodies. Women are able to make money being an ex worker without even having X with anyone. All they did was create an OF page, and then they just showed a couple of pictures. And the fact that a man is imagining having X with her, he's willing to pay for that. Okay, so that is proof that women's inherent worth in society, the way we are worshipped for every little teeny tiny thing, okay, that's a form of female privilege. I'm a firm believer in female privilege. That is absolutely a real thing. So a lot of men, the average man he's underprivileged socially. He is socially underprivileged. The average man is begging for social breadcrumbs. He has spent his life receiving breadcrumbs from his own mother, from his own father. He's been pressured to go out and work and to just bring back money. The average man gets treated like a slave. I don't care what race he is. The average man gets treated like a slave. I said what I said. He gets pressured by his boss, by his parents, by whoever's depending on him. He's pressured by other people to constantly make more money and create an income for other people. So the average man is not even valued based on his personality, his talents, his hobbies or whatever. The average man doesn't even have that level of freedom because he's still trapped in that mindset that he has to meet these stereotypes of masculinity. If you ask the average man, hey, what is masculinity? He probably won't even be able to answer. If you ask the average man, who is your masculine role model? He's not going to be able to tell you anybody. I guarantee it. If you don't believe me, go text your brother right now. Pause this video, text your brother, text whatever man you're dating, ask him who his masculine role model is. Tell him to name names. I guarantee you, he won't be able to name names. Or if he's religious, maybe he will name like a spirit. He'll be like, oh, God is my example. So he can't even name anybody on this earth. Okay, that's a problem. That's a really big problem because where is he getting his, who has been successful? Why are there no examples of these successful, ethereal, rich, emotionally stable, attractive men? Where are they at? Why are there not a lot of examples of this? And if there are examples, why can't anyone name names? And I'm not just talking about women naming names. I'm talking about the men themselves saying, hey, I want to be just like Russell Wilson, for example. I notice he's an example that some women bring up as like a quote unquote good man. I don't like to do that. I don't put random men on pedestals that I don't know. But even with men don't even like Russell Wilson. They say he's a simp. They say he's stupid. So then it's like, okay, well, who are these men's role models then? What are their names? And that is exactly my point. That's exactly why a lot of men have to lie, because they don't have an identity. And why don't they have an identity? Well, it's because in a lot of cases, they didn't have a safe space to shape their own identity, or they didn't have another man around to help shape their identity. So it's like, okay, sir, you didn't even have anyone around you to shape your identity. You don't even know who you are. So how are you going to come into my life and try to help me or try to improve my life? You're not going to be able to do that because you couldn't even improve your own. You couldn't even become self-actualized. You couldn't even actualize your own dreams. So why would I stupidly believe that you can come into my life and actualize mine. That doesn't even make any sense. We're expecting men to do something for us that they can't do for themselves in most cases. And this is exactly why I talk so much about just going ahead and decentering them, because I just feel like I'm not going to spend my life chasing after a needle in a haystack. Bitch, I am the needle in the haystack. What are you talking about? I'm the needle in the haystack. I'm the special one. I'm the one that has dreams and goals to be invested in. I'm the one that has a community to build. I'm the one that has a purpose and a destiny. So why would I spend my life chasing a lot of men who are wandering around the earth like lost puppy dogs, literally wandering around like stray dogs, and they're constantly looking to me for healing? And it's like, no, I already spent all this time finding healing for myself. So why is it now a woman's responsibility to heal a man? Oh, well, I can love you back to life. No, I'm not doing that. How about I love myself back to life? And how about I put that same standard on the man? So he needs to be somebody who can love himself back to life instead of looking for a woman to love him back to life. But that's another reason why men lie. It's because they're just seeking love and connection. They're chasing after the breadcrumbs of love and connection. That's where you get sex addicts from. It's not about the actual X part. It's not. Because if it was, you can make yourself have an orgasm by using your own hand. So why do you need another human being involved? No, this has to do with human validation. I said what I said. You don't have to spend 25 hours talking to a person just to have an orgasm. No, you can do that with yourself in 5 minutes. So the fact that he's going out of his way to find every woman on the dating app, he's specifically going after a certain type of woman. She has to have a nice body, or she has to be pretty, or she has to be white, or whatever his little standards are. And then he has to invite her over. He's taking her on dates. He's future faking. He's pretending like they're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. That's a lot of emotional effort just for an orgasm, right? Well, that's because it's not just about the sexual part. It's about the emotional part. Most men have never had any form of emotional intimacy. And so what happens is sometimes they conflate sex with intimacy. Those are two different things. Most men have spent their lives never feeling emotionally safe. This society that we live in is definitely not emotionally safe. Other men are not emotionally safe. And we know this because a lot of men, they'll have these surface level friendships for 15 and 20 years. Men will be friends with each other for 20 years. They don't know their friend's wife's name. They don't know their friend's children's names. They don't know when their friend had to get a surgery. You know, they're not visiting their friends in the hospitals or in nursing homes. A lot of men's friendships are really just based on proximity. It's like a situationship, but it's in the form of a friendship. So most men are only friends with other men because it was convenient for them at the time, not because they sought out that particular man, like, hey, you're a cool person. A lot of women, you know how they say women have more conflicts and stuff like that? Well, us women have higher standards for friendship. So that's why us women are better at communicating our needs. Having conflict, that doesn't automatically mean you are a bad person. No, in a lot of cases, it could mean you have more boundaries. So, for example, with women, I don't see a lot of women getting into physical fights with each other and remaining friends for 20 years later. A lot of men will get into physical fights over a basketball game, over a card game. They got into a fight over a poker game. I've even heard stories of men robbing their other male friends. Oh, well, Johnny just got some new speakers. Johnny just got a new laptop. Next thing you know, his own friends are robbing him of thousands of dollars worth of electronic merchandise. And then they're staying friends and saying, oh, well, it's not a big deal. That was in the past. Oh, well, he was just struggling. So, we're still cool. So most men are used to being in these, they're used to being in survival mode. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm talking about emotionally. So that's why he's lying. That's why a lot of them are liars. It's because he is in a state of emotional survival mode. He's just trying to survive out here. He already doesn't have social status. He already doesn't have friends. He already doesn't have hobbies. He already has no reason to really live or be on this earth, according to his own talking points. Go and watch the male YouTube channels where it's focused on just a male audience. Go watch their channels and hear what they're talking about. You'll hear them repeat a lot of the same things that I say on my Desentering Men content. A lot of them feel like they have no purpose, no destiny. They're over here in their 40s and 50s still struggling to figure out who they are. That's why you have a lot of men on the DL and stuff like that. He never even He never accepted who he was or tried to even figure out who he was or why he was behaving a certain way. So a lot of men are walking around in an identity crisis. It could be a sexual identity crisis. It could be an emotional identity crisis. It could be a financial identity crisis. That's why you come across a lot of men where you'll ask him, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm an accountant and I work in real estate and I'm also a salesman and I work for an MLM. It's like, okay, why is he naming 5 jobs? Because he doesn't have a financial identity yet. He doesn't have a career identity yet. He doesn't know enough about his own gifts and talents to be able to establish himself yet. That's why he's already 35, 40, 45, 50, and still hopping from job to job. And by the way, no shade when it comes to job hopping. I've job hopped myself, but I didn't try to go and seek after a relationship or prioritize relationships above my own financial stability. That's what I didn't do. So I'm not against people switching careers. It's just that a lot of men have their priorities out of order to where they'll be, like I said, they'll be homeless and still seeking after women. I'm like, dude, you should be holding up a sign. Like, if I'm homeless, I'm at least going to hold up a sign or something and try to get some money so I can have some food. I'm not going to be chasing after men on the street. So that's what I mean. A lot of men, they're constantly chasing this emotional high because their emotional baseline is so much lower than women's. And a part of that comes from being underprivileged in society. But guess what? Who created and shaped this society? Who created the systems that we know of today? Capitalism, lookism, featureism, colorism, racism. Who created the concept of war and doing all this brainwashing and psychological manipulation? What gender created all of those things? Oh, that's right, it was men. Okay, so men need to take up their problems with the other men who oppress them. In a lot of cases, it's really just men oppressing other men. So they'll be looking at women. That's why they look at women for healing, because on a subconscious level, a lot of men view other men as their enemy. Have you ever noticed that? He can have female friends all day long. But as soon as you start having male friends, oh, there's a problem. Why is that? Well, it's because on a subconscious level, they view other men as their enemies and rivals. They don't have a sense of brotherhood with other men. That's why he has so much fear around other men. That's why when a man is walking down the street by himself, if he sees another man, he's more likely to be scared. He's not scared of Sarah walking down the street next to him at night. He's not scared of a woman, a random woman following him at night. No, he feels threatened by members of his own gender. So that's another reason why you see the hypocrisy in relationships where he can have all these female friends and you're not supposed to be threatened because, women are inherently not threatening, right? But then when it comes to you having male friends, oh, that's a huge problem. And it's because culturally, most men are very ruthless against other men. That's why he's scared. He's afraid that that man will take his girl, or you know what I mean? Like the homie, she's going to smash the homie or whatever. Well, why would you even think that way if you can trust other men? If men were inherently so trustworthy and so upstanding and so wonderful, why would you be threatened and feeling like another man's going to take your girl? Why would you even be thinking like that? Women are expected to not think like that. We're expected to not be threatened by other women. We're expected to have a nice little peaceful sisterhood with other women. In fact, if you're a woman who gets into a lot of fistfights with other women, you get viewed as being ratchet, being dramatic, being dysfunctional, being trashy. So why is it that with men, it's not trashy to get in a fight with another man? Oh no, that's just another day being a man. Okay, so that right there proves my point. That most men are living in a state of emotional chaos. So that's why he has to lie to get access to you, because if he were to actually tell you the truth, oh, hey, actually I'm depressed and I have anger problems and I sometimes have an alcohol and gambling problem. He knows that if he tells you that, you're going to run for the hills. Another reason why they lie is because men struggle with comparing themselves to other men way more than women. I'm convinced. Because look at men's YouTube channels, listen to men's music, the music that a man makes, listen to rap music. Go look at men who are athletes and stuff. These people are always comparing themselves to other men. Go watch ESPN, go watch all those sportscaster shows and stuff. They're constantly comparing themselves to the next athlete. He's comparing his finances to the next man's finances. He's comparing his height to the next man's height. That's why they have like the black pill and they're like, oh, well, your height is all that matters. Oh, well, I'm comparing my jawline. They're comparing the shape of their jawlines to other men. They're comparing their hairline to other men. They compare like they compare the female gaze. That's why you have men going and doing these interviews with women like, oh, hey, what's your type? That's why you have so many men who they're obsessed with these shows like Pop the Balloon or like the videos where the men go and interview women on the street because they're obsessed with the female gaze. What do women like? Well, it's because they struggle with comparing themselves to other men. So that's why he's a liar. That's why he has to lie, because he views other men as his competition for the female gaze. He's comparing himself to other men. He's comparing himself to white men. He's comparing himself to light-skinned men. He's comparing himself to black men, to dark-skinned men, to Hispanic men, to rich men. He's comparing himself to the man who drives a better car. That's why they always bring that up. Have you ever had a man be obsessed with your ex? Have you ever had a man ask you who your ex is? Have you ever had men ask to see pictures of who you dated last? Because I have. You know why? Because they were trying to compare themselves. They wanted to see how they measured up. And by the way, that's a trap. Never answer that question, because there is no right answer. Either way, he's going to feel insecure, because if all of your exes look exactly like him, he's going to feel insecure. And then if all of your exes look the opposite of him, he's still going to feel insecure. So most men struggle really bad with comparing themselves. And not to mention the fact that ego, they kind of have this thing where they want to protect their ego and all that. And so because that man has nothing to show for his life, all he has left are his words. So that's why his mouth is filled with lies, because, he has to say, oh yeah, I make six figures. Oh yeah, I only fly first class. Oh yeah, I've been here. I've been to this country. I went to that country. And then, he could be lying. It could all be lies. Well, but that's all he has. All he has are lies. That's his social climbing strategy. For a lot of men, their social climbing strategy is to get access to women or to lie to get women. I've never heard of a man where his social climbing strategy does not involve women at all, or where he doesn't have women as the prize in the end. I've never seen that. Not with a heterosexual straight male. Never seen it. So when it comes to men lying, he's doing it because it is a social shortcut. He feels like it's a shortcut to get in your panties. It's a shortcut to get you to put him on a pedestal. Most men have never been put on a pedestal in their lives. They've never been put on a pedestal. He never even made the varsity team in high school. He never made the varsity team. He was never Mr. Popular. He was never the hot guy. Maybe he was bullied when he was younger. Or maybe he peaked in high school. Maybe that was the only time he was relevant. The last time he was relevant was when he was on the football team back in 1995. And so now, 30 years later, he's trying to figure it out. That's why you have some of those men where they're constantly reminiscing about how they could have made it into the league. These are the coulda, shoulda, woulda men. Oh, well, if I would have not hurt my knee, I could have made it into the league. Oh, I should have tried out for that football team. He's living in the past because his present has nothing to offer. He hasn't built a life for himself to where he has anything to look forward to in his future. That's why he's always reminiscing on the past. Have you ever met a man who talks about the past women he slept with? Oh, well, back in high school, I was talking to this girl. She was bad. Oh, I was talking to Sarah. She was so fine. Well, yeah, that's because that was the last time he had access to anybody attractive. It was back when women were young and dumb. Back when that's why some men are attracted to underage women or super young women who don't have experience. They're attracted to naive women because they feel like those women are easier to manipulate. And so men who brag about who they used to have and what they used to pull and who they used to be, that's a sign that he is currently a loser. If all you have to talk about are what you used to do 25 years ago, and especially if you're bringing up women, other women, that's a form of triangulation. That's another social climbing tactic that a lot of men try to use. They want to triangulate you with another woman because they want you to fight over him. They want you to try harder to get his attention. Why is he doing that? Well, it's because he feels inferior to you socially. He knows that he can't measure up. He knows that whatever money he has, whatever he has to offer, you know how they say to a woman, what do you bring to the table? Well, okay, what does this man bring to the table? Nothing. A bunch of lies, STDs, funky breath, and skid marks on his underwear. What does he bring to the table? Like, seriously, a lot of men, he can't cook. He doesn't know how to plan a trip. He's never even been anywhere. And by the way, that is a very unattractive quality to me when a man is a bad planner Like if he's terrible at planning simple dates and stuff, okay, that tells me he doesn't know how to plan. So he hasn't planned anything for his own life. And so that's why it is reflecting when it comes to his dating scenarios. He's not good at planning and following through on his personal goals in terms of his own hobbies. That takes planning. So if a man tells me, oh yeah, I love soccer, that's one of my passions, that's one of my hobbies, okay, so I better see some proof of that. You need to be a part of a soccer league or a part of some sort of gym. You should own soccer balls and soccer shoes, and you should have your own schedule of how often you go out and play soccer. Otherwise, I don't take it seriously. So that's exactly what I mean. It's like this man, he doesn't even create enough abundance in his life to have the time or money to do his own hobbies. Your hobbies are what feeds you. Your hobbies are what gives you your emotional health back. You know how they say certain things drain you emotionally? Your hobbies are what kind of like restores you. So that could be, it could be singing, it could be playing a sport, it could be doing some form of art, performing, I don't know, volunteering. So if a man doesn't even have time for hobbies, or if he doesn't have hobbies that I have in common with him, why is he here then? That's proof that he's just there for status and sex. He's there for status, he's there for sex, he's there for emotional validation. Because what do we have in common? A lot of men know that they don't have anything in common with you as a woman. You're leveled up, you're pretty, you've spent time working on your body. He's still trying to get rid of his 20-pound gut. He's still trying to get rid of his 20-pound beer belly. Meanwhile, your belly has been flat. You've been had a washboard stomach. You had a washboard stomach since 2022. This man hasn't had a washboard stomach since he was 15 years old. This man has spent the past 15 years with a beer belly that he couldn't even get rid of, and has the audacity to try to put a woman on this standard that he himself can't even meet. So when it comes to men lying, he's lying because he knows that he is not your counterpart. He's not on your level. I talk about that all the time. I say to decenter men, I say that you should either not date or take a break from dating or stop prioritizing it so much. And if you are dating, the guy should at least be your counterpart. So if you're tall and attractive, okay, he needs to be tall and attractive. If you're tall, attractive, and financially stable, okay, he should be tall, attractive, and financially stable. But a lot of men don't even meet up. They don't even measure up to that basic level. And so that's why he has to lie. He's lying to fill in the gaps. He has to lie to fill in the social gaps. And that's why you see a lot of non-black men leaning on their whiteness or leaning on their non-blackness, or they go for women of different cultures. Yeah, I said it. They go for women of different cultures because they know that you're going to be more culturally ignorant. You're going to be more ignorant to their culture. You're monoracially, unambiguously black from the south side of Chicago. You know nothing about WASP culture over in Beverly Hills, California. So that's why they're going sometimes for their cultural opposite, because their opposite is easier to manipulate, or they feel like they can use their exoticism, they can use their exotic privilege. We see this happening on all sides of the spectrum. This happens with us exoticals. We see unambiguous black people doing it. We see white people, people of all ethnicities do stuff like this to manipulate people of the other ethnicity. So that's another reason that we see men lying. Sometimes it's easier for a man to lie if he is way different than you culturally. If he doesn't speak the same language. Have you ever met men who they want to target women from other countries, or she's like, she's an immigrant, she just got to the US. They try to target these women who barely speak English and stuff. Why? Because they're easy to manipulate. That's easy as hell to manipulate that person. They don't understand cultural nuances yet. They're just learning the language. They're just learning the language. They're just learning the culture. They don't know how cheaters operate. Like cheating has become more advanced with technology. So they don't know all of the nuances or how to spot certain things because they're dating in a different cultural territory. So they don't really know the cultural norms as much. But another reason we see men lying is because they're trying to increase their desirability. He knows he's not desirable. So that's why you hear men saying, oh, well, I work in finance. Oh, well, I work in sales. What do you mean work in sales? Do you work at AT&T selling phone plans? Are you like a major salesman? What kind of sales are you doing? Because generally speaking, the more vague a man is, and if the job title is something I've never heard of, something he really has to explain a lot, or if the company is something he really has to explain a lot, that's a red flag. It's a red flag because it shows that there is a potential lack of stability there. There's a lack of stability. He's trying to manage how you perceive him. That's why he's not giving you the exact job title. And then you try to look it up. There's no company website. He's got no LinkedIn. You can't even find his name on the internet. Okay, so that shows me that he's not successful then, because the average person who is successful, they're going to definitely be recognized for their success. So either they will be posting their successes on their own social media, or other companies or whoever works alongside them will be writing articles about them because they're successful. That's a sign of legit success. You can't fake all of that. You might be able to fake a LinkedIn page. You can fake a company, or say you work for a company and then that company doesn't exist, but you can't fake true success and social proof. So if that man tries to play it off like he's so successful, but then you look it up and there's no social proof, nobody has featured him in anything. So you're telling me that you're a huge real estate mogul. You're telling me that you made $20 million in real estate and there's not one article, not one website, not one testimonial. Nobody's talking about how good you are at real estate. So that's why men lie. It's because they're trying to manage their impression. Also, they think that you won't look them up. They think that you won't try to catch them in the lie because some men are used to only dealing with desperate women who have no options. So that's why you see a lot of men where they go for the women that they feel are socially beneath them. Have you ever seen that? This is where you hear a lot of women talking about, oh, I dated a man who's colorist. Okay, so if he's colorist and thinks that dark-skinned women are beneath him, well, that shows me that he feels like he has more social status than you. So that's why he's going for you, because he feels like you'll be more desperate for him. Okay, so that's another tactic that men use. That's why I say just go ahead and decenter them, because you don't want that either. You don't want somebody who's looking down on you, or he's only going for you because, you're easier, you're low-hanging fruit, basically. So why do you see men doing that? Well, he wants a woman who's codependent on him. That's why you see a lot of men who want a woman who is younger and broker than him. He wants a woman who's dumber than him. He doesn't want someone who's hella smart. He wants someone younger and dumber. He wants someone maybe less experienced, or maybe he wants someone less attractive than him. So that's why sometimes you see these super buff men who are hella in shape going for women who are obese. And I said what I said. Come and argue with me in my comment section. Your ass is going to get blocked because I said what I said. I've seen this in real life several times. They'll try to use these women for sex or whatever, validation. They use the big woman to cook for him or whatever. Or they feel like that woman's more desperate. And in a lot of cases, women who have inferiority complexes are more desperate. So she is paying for the dates. She is texting him and letting him treat her like shit. And then she's coming back around because she doesn't have options. So that's why sometimes men, they'll try to go for women who they believe have less options. They'll go for whoever he thinks is uglier than him. Have you ever met a man who hates beautiful women? Why is that? Well, it's because the beautiful woman has more social power than him. Have you ever met a man who hates light-skinned women, white women, non-black women? He hates ex-workers, whatever it is. He hates women that have nice bodies. It's not necessarily that he hates you personally. He hates your social status. He hates the fact that you have more options than him in terms of dating and also in terms of life. You have more privilege than him. So this is why you see some men where they seek underprivileged women. They want the women who are less privileged than them. That's why they want these broke-ass women from other countries who are so poor. They'll be homeless. They want those women because those women are going to be more dependent. She's more likely to do what he says. She's more likely to deal with the bullshit. She's more likely to tolerate being treated like shit. Why do men treat women like shit sometimes? So they can feel powerful for once. He spent his whole life feeling like a loser. The only time he feels powerful is when he's cheating. The only time he feels powerful is when he humbles you by cheating on you. That's the only time he feels relevant, is when he's keeping secrets from you. Privacy is a form of power. So when he's lying to you or keeping secrets, he's not telling you that he secretly has a best friend that's a woman, he's texting this girl all the time or whatever. That makes him feel powerful. Why does he need that? Well, it's because he doesn't have power in society. And he doesn't have more social power than you. So he's trying to level the playing field. He doesn't want you to have guy friends, but then he secretly has girlfriends. He's trying to level the playing field. And a lot of times men will go after women that they don't fear rejection from. So for example, sometimes the men who go for super old women, I've seen this as well, where you'll have a 25-year-old going for somebody who's 45, 55, 65. Well, why is that? Well, because it doesn't hurt him as much if he gets rejected by an older woman, because he's like, oh, she's ugly anyway. Oh, she's old anyway. She's wrinkled anyway. But if that man, if he's rejected by a beautiful woman, that rejection hurts more because the woman has more social power. So when you are a woman who has any form of privilege, first of all, you already have female privilege. But if you have any other form of privilege as well, pretty privilege, maybe you have a nice body or something, I don't know, maybe you're wealthy or whatever it is, you're educated. That's why they try to say they don't care about that. Well, it's because those things are a privilege. So he's going to lie and say, oh, I don't care about that. He only says that about things that are a privilege. You're educated. You're pretty. You're smart. You have a certain talent or skill. You're popular. You're famous. You're notable. He's saying that he doesn't care about that because he doesn't want to acknowledge your privilege. Why not? Well, because he doesn't have those privileges himself. If he acknowledges that you have that privilege, then he would have to acknowledge that he doesn't have that privilege. But yeah, that's why you see sometimes men going after women that they feel are socially beneath them. Or maybe he will go for a woman who's older than him and pretty because he feels like that's more even. So her being older than him, maybe that makes her a little bit insecure, but that makes him feel better to know that she feels a little bit insecure about her age. So there's an entire ego game that a lot of men are playing. That's why they lie. That's why they only go after women that they feel are uglier than them or women that they feel are socially beneath them, because it's not going to hurt him as bad when that woman dumps him. It's not going to hurt him as bad. He doesn't get as angry when she mistreats him because, she's easier to throw away. He's like, oh, whatever. She's not that cute anyway. Oh, whatever. She was fat anyway. Have you ever dated a man where he gets mad and then he calls you fat? You know what I mean? Then the truth comes out. It's like, oh, well, he thought you were fat anyway. Okay, so that shows that there is an underlying social game that he was playing, and he felt like your weight put you beneath him. And so that's why, when he was mad, his actual true colors came out. You want to know how a man really is? Watch him when he's angry. How does he act when he's angry? That's his true character. That's really who he is. Does he get violent when he's angry? Does he start breaking glass and throwing stuff? Does he start cussing you out and calling you names? That's who he really is at his core. But some men, they seek emotional control. So that's why he's lowering his standards so he can receive the validation and the power. He wants to have social power. That's why he's only going after these broke ghetto women. Have you ever seen that? The men who only go after ghetto women and then he complains about those ghetto women. Well, that's the only group of women that he can provide for. So if she's in the ghetto, she only makes $10K per year and he makes $30K. Well, yeah, that's why, because he can't date in his own tax bracket, of course, because he already knows once he starts asking for 50-50, majority of those women are going to go away. So he'll be dating these women who come from these really bad backgrounds or they choose to live a really bad lifestyle. And so he's only dating a woman that will put him on this pedestal and kind of view him as like someone that can change her life. So he wants that emotional control. So that's all he has access to. That's why you hear a lot of men saying they want a woman who's young, dumb, uneducated, has nothing going for herself, doesn't even live in the United States or doesn't have access to live in the United States, comes from an underprivileged country, some sort of underprivileged background. That's why he seeks after underprivileged women, is because he himself is not a privileged man. He's quote unquote average. He's regular. He's basic. So in the eyes of a woman who's underprivileged, she's just going to put him on a pedestal because of his whiteness or his skin tone or his nationality. But another thing too is some men, they have this identity where they want to be your savior. He has this identity where he wants to rescue you. He wants to be the Superman in your story. He wants to be the Jesus Christ in your story. He wants to be the Alpha and the Omega of your story. He wants to be the Prince Charming of your story. That's where you get like these love bombers from. These men who just come out of nowhere. He's buying you all these flowers. He's giving you gifts that you can't even afford to give yourself. Well, it's because he wants you to view him as the hero in your story. So that's actually kind of like, that's more status seeking in a lot of cases though, because he equates being needed with being loved. Okay, so that's not That's codependency. That's codependency. He wants you to need him. And that makes him feel more in control. And you see this type of behavior from a lot of men who came from underprivileged backgrounds, men who have felt a lack of control in society. So they feel helpless in society, maybe due to their race, their ethnicity, their nationality, their religion, whatever. And so the way that they seek to have that control again is with women. Another thing too is that a lot of men, they seek emotional worship. Okay, so an example of this is men who date their fans, like these basketball players, these athletes, these singers and stuff. They date their fans, they date their followers. Why can't they date their counterpart? Well, because the counterpart is less likely to emotionally worship him. So another sign that he's seeking after emotional worship, he's constantly talking about teaching you things. He wants to be your freaking spiritual guru. He wants to be your teacher. He wants to be your college professor. I mean, this man, he wants to be your educator all of a sudden. He's seeking emotional worship. That's like a form of a power dynamic. He wants to feel like a king. He's the king. You're just the peasant. So that's where you get these men where they date their fans, they date their followers. These are men who they always want to teach you something. So for example, if you are a woman who's very well traveled, he doesn't want to take you to the Caribbean because you've already been there. You've already been to all these places in the Caribbean. He doesn't want to take you to Mexico because you've already been there 5 times. He has to feel like he's giving you access to something new, because if not, then you're not going to worship him in the same way. You're not going to view it as, oh my God, this man, he just elevated my lifestyle and changed my life. He wants that power dynamic where you're kind of emotionally worshiping him. Your quality of life would go down without him. That's what he wants. So these are the men who talk so much about they want a girl who's innocent. They want a girl who's submissive. They want a girl who's not like other girls. Okay, he wants a woman who emotionally worships him. He finds emotional safety through being worshipped and admired, not through actual intimacy, not through vulnerability. A lot of men are very afraid of being vulnerable. And it's funny, though, because ironically, being vulnerable is actually a part of how you build deeper connections with your family members, with friends, and in romantic relationships. But that's why a lot of men, they break up with you or they start cheating once you start leveling up. So the woman, when she starts losing weight, when she goes back to college, when she moves out of the ghetto, when she decides that she wants to level herself up without him, then suddenly he feels pissed off. He wants to start humbling her. He wants to convince her that her business is going to fail, that her weight loss is going to fail. He starts going out and buying all this fast food. He wants to tempt her more than normal because he's afraid of not being needed. There's a difference between being loved and being needed. A lot of men don't understand the difference. They want codependency. And this is why you hear a lot of creators saying men aren't capable of love. Because in a lot of cases, if you ask a man, what is love? Why do you love your partner? They will start describing all the ways that she serves him, or they will describe codependent types of dynamics. Oh, well, she was there with me when I was down and out. Oh, well, she stayed with me when I was an alcoholic. Oh, well, she stayed with me when I abused her. Sir, you're describing codependency. That's different than loving someone for who they are. So that's why you see the divorce rates are so high. That's why you see most of the time it's the women filing the divorce, because the woman is actually standing 10 toes down. She's actually standing on business with her boundaries. If you don't believe me, if you're a man watching this, which you really shouldn't be, but if you're a man watching this and you don't believe me, go ask your mama. Go ask your sister. Go ask the nearest woman around you who's been divorced why she got a divorce. Oh, what? You haven't been around women who've been divorced? You've only been around women who just got pregnant and, they were never married? Okay, so that's a totally different cultural dynamic that your talking points are coming from. Because a lot of men, they'll speak down on divorced women, but they've never even been around women who have ever even been married. So they don't even have a context for what marriage actually is. They don't even come from a home where their parents have been married, or they've never been around a healthy marriage versus an unhealthy marriage versus, they don't understand the nuances in marriage. So that's why you'll see them even talking down on people who are divorced, or they'll shame women for not being married. And then it's like, okay, sir, are you married? Who wanted to marry you? Nobody. Nobody. No woman on this earth. Out of all the billions of women on this earth, there was no woman that wanted to marry him. So it's a form of projection. But I love talking about this topic. If there are any other decentering men topics you want me to talk about, please comment down below. What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.